Grand day, everyone. Welcome to this amazing place that we call the Daily Huddle. I am your host, Chase Steele Gray, along with my good friend, Sorel Guiton. I love saying that. Love the Haitian people. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us today. And, as we do, before we get into our wonderful, shindig, we got a little joke for you. And because today is the day known as Valentine's Day, I have a Valentine's Day joke. Sorel is like, Sorel, what do they give people in France? Or what does a man give a woman in Valentine's Day in France?
French chocolate kisses.
That was a really good answer. We have some great consolation prizes for you. But the answer is a big quiche. Roll that tape. Sorel, you weren't expecting that one, huh? A big quiche. Just roll that in your head. It'll be okay. It'll be okay. Give it a couple seconds.
Completely off guard. I'm going to be kissing. I'm going to be kissing people all over the place.
I like that. I wanted that to stick in your mind a little bit. Welcome once again. Thank you all for being here. Chase Steele Gray and Sorel Guiton. Well, we got to start it a certain way. I don't want it to be boring. I don't ever want to be said, oh, Chase, that guy, he's coming on boring. So today we welcome back once again to the Daily Huddle, one of my best friends on the planet. And we're going to get to him in a second. But before we do, I want to ask a couple questions to the people in our area on our scope of things. Who we got here? Let me see. Let's go with Andrea first. It's always great. It's always great with Andrea first. Andrea, are you there?
I'm here.
How are you today? And what are you grateful for?
I am the way I say I am, and today I'm inspired, and I am grateful for books.
Oh my God.
Grateful for books. I'm reading Company of One, and I'm really enjoying it.
Company of One.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I don't think I know about that. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
I gotta check that out. Company of One. Thank you so much. Sorel. Where are you? And who will you hug today?
I am right here.
I see you.
I'm supposed to be.
I do see you.
And I'm going to hug my bride.
Ah.
Susan and I have been, this will be our 37th Valentine's.
Yes. We know how difficult that is these days. So I applaud you. Wow. I really applaud you.
With her, it was really easy.
Oh, you're gonna have a good day today. You're gonna have a good day today. But that statement, you're gonna have a good day. Oh, that's good, man. That is a very authentic smile. So I appreciate you for that. As I said before, one of my greatest friends on the planet, Daniel Johnson, is here with us today. And if you don't know about Daniel, I mean, I've known him for so many years. He's a father, he's a husband, he's an entrepreneur, he's a vocalist. He does so many things well, and I really have so much respect for him. As I look at this amazing bio, I always go back to that sentence that Daniel is definitely a unique, powerful person and all that. But the thing he says, or the thing in here about saying that one thing that will piss you off enough to get you to move towards the thing which deep in your truest self you want most to say. I have been dealing with that with Daniel for years. As a matter of fact, the picture that Daniel gave for the bio, I feel like I'm in trouble just looking at it. I'm like, what did I do? Please welcome to the Daily Huddle, Daniel Johnson. As we
Thank you, my man.
unpack the question, are you making the right mistakes? I'm going to be honest before you say anything. When you said that to me the first time, I was like, I'm going to let him unpack that because I want to see where you go with that. So you unpack it for us and then I'll chime in.
Yeah, man. Thank you. And so it's great to be here. I appreciate you guys. So yeah, that question, the way that first came about for me in my experience was that I have a younger brother who had spent about 10 years in prison. And when he got out, his son was 16 or 15. And we were having a conversation, and he was telling me that he was really frustrated with his son because he was trying to get him to, walk a different path and, hey, don't make the same mistakes I did, learn from my mistakes. And I stopped him and I said, my brother, I have to ask you, I, I think you need to think about what you're saying. There are a whole lot of things to unpack there, but, first of all, like, you were gone for 10 years, you were in prison, not to mention everything you're saying to your son is the same thing dad said to us, and you ended up in prison. So, so is it really possible for your son to learn from your mistakes? I said, we can't, I don't really believe we can learn from other people's mistakes because, and I've said this to you, if you could learn from other people's mistakes, people would have stopped making mistakes a long time ago.
That
Right?
knocked me down when you said that.
Yeah,
Yep.
we've been on planet Earth for many, 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 many years. And history keeps repeating itself. And I really believe that's in large part due to the fact that people keep learning, relearning the same things, right? So in unpacking that question, are you making the right mistakes? I was thinking about that, and what is a mistake, right? A mistake for me is something that you do or stumble upon in pursuing the truth or running from it, right? It's one thing or the other. And so in the case of my brother, it seemed important to me that he understand that some of the things that he was talking about his son, uh, mistakes he was talking about his son not making, were things that he discovered running away from the truth, right? And so I think that's an important question to ask, is when someone is telling you, hey, don't do this or don't do that, or do this and do that, how did they come to that truth? Like, where did that come from? How is that the truth? Because the truth about the truth is that the truth will be tested, right? The truth gets tested. You can say, well, my truth and your truth and all of that, but truth gets tested. And at the end, we'll find out what the truth is. There's this is coming to me right now. There's a verse in the Bible that people are fond of quoting, oh, the truth will set you free. And I think it's so funny because people don't look at that, examine that saying. And the reality is what that's really saying is that the litmus test is that if it's the truth, it will set you free. Like, you'll know it's the truth because you got free from the experience in it.
Right.
Right. So what is a mistake? Right. I did a training once called the Encounter Training. And we talked a lot about communication and relationships. And one of the things that they really encouraged was this concept of firing arrows. I talked about relationships a lot. You and I talk about relationships a lot. And I think something that hamstrings people is being afraid to make a mistake, right? And they were talking about, hey, you just keep firing arrows. And what I took from that was it aligned very much with this idea that I try to live by, which is pursuit. Pursuit. Like, many of us get into a relationship, and let's say with our children, with our parents, with a significant other, on this day, love day, this Valentine's Day, think about that person in your life, and what are you making mistakes because you are avoiding the truth? Are you making mistakes because you're afraid to make mistakes and moving away from, because you're only in a relationship, you're only moving closer or moving away, right? Our relationship with the truth, you're either moving closer to it or you're moving away. So are you making mistakes in pursuit of that relationship? And if you are, keep firing arrows. Keep firing arrows. If you're not, because you're going to make mistakes either way. That's the thing.
Right.
A relationship is a context for risk. You're going to be risking either way. So you keep firing arrows, looking for that truth, pursuing that relationship, making those mistakes. So are you making the right mistakes? Or are you making other mistakes, right? Mistakes that happen because you're not completely checked in, or you're trying to avoid making mistakes, or you're taking conventional wisdom and just applying it sort of in a blanket way. You and I talked about this idea that when, the idea of learning, when you learn, for me, it connotes this idea of internalization of something, right? And it's difficult to learn without experience, right? You can certainly be informed by someone's experience. You and I have, I think, done this thing where we've done a pretty good job of taking things that our parents, who, in a lot of cases were wilding out at certain times in life, and we've taken that information and been able to let it inform some of the decisions that we made, or some of the things that we did or didn't do. But to say that we learned, I mean, I don't, my dad did a ton of drugs. I've never done drugs. Can I learn? Can I actually internalize the experience of doing drugs and then not doing drugs? Be able to say to somebody, listen, man, you don't want that. You don't want anything to do with that. I'm not saying that I can't tell someone, hey, listen, that's probably not a good idea. Here's why. But here's why I believe it's important to pursue relationships. Because when you pursue relationships, what you're really doing, when you're pursuing a person in a relationship, you're creating trust. And when you move away from a relationship, when you're afraid to make mistakes, that trust is not growing. So when you are passing on what you call wisdom, when you're passing on what you experience as truth, there's no trust there. If you've been trying to avoid mistakes, you know what I'm saying?
There's so much I want to say right now. I wish this was
Yeah.
an hour and a half. I'm just gonna give you like a little bit. I was like, this is, they were coming by me like torpedoes when you were talking. Oh.
Sorry,
Anyway.
I need to pause a little more. Sorry about that.
No, I mean, what you're saying is so rich and so vital for most human beings. The thing that came up for me out of the 20, I'm just going to pick one, is you have a son. You and I have spoken many times about, as a matter of fact, both of our fathers did drugs in and around us as children, and neither one of us do drugs, right? Mm-hmm. Can you actually verbalize that by saying, you know how people say you learn from example? So now you have a young boy. He's never seen you do drugs. Can we say that he's now learning by example as opposed to, motion or actually doing?
Yeah, I think that when people talk about it, they talk about learning as if that's the only example that they're getting.
Right.
And I think that what I'm keen on doing is making sure that what he's observing from me, or I shouldn't say making sure because I fail at this all the time, but being attentive to what he's observing from me, and understanding that he's going to have other observational experiences.
Right.
And so in our house, for example, my wife drinks and I don't drink. And one of the reasons that I stopped drinking was because we had him. And while we had conversations around how we were going to treat alcohol, it's not like we were getting lit or anything like that, but even just having it around, what I saw with her was that, for her, it was normal to have a glass of wine every night. I didn't grow up with people drinking in the house, right? So for me, my baseline was 0. Her baseline was a drink or two. And I felt like, well, we could model for him what healthy behavior or healthy attitude is towards alcohol But I mean, I think what we're really showing him is that you should be drinking if we're both drinking all the time.
Oh, okay.
Right? Is that the option for you is to drink? And I felt very strongly that I wanted to show him, yeah, you can drink, but another option is to not drink. And so by having two parents in the house, one of whom drinks and one of whom doesn't, he isn't just looking at his parents drinking all the time or drinking some of the time and thinking that that's life, that you're an adult, now you get to drink. Because I think a lot of people grow up with that. And so for me, it was important to give him that observational experience so that he knew, oh, it's an option to not drink too.
That's deep. That's really, really deep. I don't think people think about both sides of it, but you will get to a point in your adult life where you will see your son putting into action this tutelage, either by sight or sound or whatever. And
absolutely.
And it happened to me. And that's why you talk about mistakes.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a quick story. A girl that I was dating had a child. The child would go to my house and see a picture over the toilet. The picture over the toilet said, "You can create anything you want to. You don't need permission." And he read that every time he went to the bathroom. So one day we were in an office and he wanted to play backgammon. We didn't have a backgammon board. He said, "I want to play backgammon." I said, "We don't have a board here, but you know what? Let's make one." He goes, "Make one?" Ripped some papers up, made some triangles, put one together, ripped some other papers up, made some pieces, put them in 2 cups, shook them around. And he looked at me and he was like, "This is awesome." I said, "Yes, it is." And a second after that, you know what he said? "We don't need permission. We can create anything we want to." It blew me away. He said it right in that moment. So as we make mistakes around our children, we also do things that they pick up and put into play. So when you said, "Are we making the right mistakes?" I initially thought, I'm not making mistakes on purpose. They're happening. They're like, hey, let me make the right mistake today. Like I wasn't thinking about it. I was like, what is he saying? Make the right mistakes. You should make the right mistakes today, Chase. That kind of thing. But I appreciate what you're saying because it makes a lot of sense. And that thing about learning from your mistakes or learning from, I know, because we were talking and I initially said, yeah, my dad always said, or someone was saying to me, you don't have to learn from your own mistakes. You can learn from other people's mistakes. If a guy drives down the street and hits the pothole and he's in front of you, what do? You swerve. So you don't hit the pothole. You learn from his mistake, but you learn in real time. That's different than
you experienced it. Yeah.
You experienced it, right. Yeah. And that's a really interesting fact that I don't think a lot of people speak about collectively. They say that in a very lackadaisical way. But what were your points that you learned when you were younger? What happened to you exactly? What was the experience? Because we have friends that have parents who say not to do, and they do. Yeah. And then when we call them on it, they go, "No, you do as I say, not as I do." They're like, "What?" Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a tough. Yeah. That's a tough call. One. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we've talked about this before, that it's said in psychology that it's very difficult to do what you have not seen, and equally difficult to not do what you have. That is, and I have found that to be true in my life in being a parent. I ruminate all the time. Okay, how I just said that to my son. My dad used to say things to me like that. He used to look at me exactly that way, or he used to, or my mom used to do this, or she used to say that, or in these circumstances she would be this way. And I see those things coming out of me, right? And this is why it's so important, I believe, to pursue relationships, pursue people in relationships, because relationships are where you learn about yourself.
Right.
And if you're not pursuing, again, if you're not in pursuit of the truth and you're running from it, then you're not putting yourself in that situation, in that context, to be able to learn more about yourself, to be able to actually see yourself.
Right. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Let's take a couple questions. Cece, I saw your hand up.
Oh, yes. I love this subject. I can relate.
Yeah.
because I did learn by observation as a young lady. And my parents said the same thing. Don't do as I do as I say.
Right,
Perhaps I was just like them. And to undo it took being around other healthy people because they would be so nice, generous, and say, see, that don't look right. And I'd be like, in my mind, I thought it was normal because I grew up with that. Now that I'm undoing it, a whole new world is opening up for me now that I'm changing to the better and I'm reflecting on myself and not anyone else and not shifting blame, but taking responsibility for me and the way that I act, even with my nieces and nephews. I have to learn about myself through them and coming and being very creative with them so that I learn and they learn at the same time what healthiness is all about. So thank you for the subject. I pass.
Amazing.
That's awesome.
It is really great. Sorrel.
Daniel, you never fail to deliver. Thank you for this.
He opens it up.
I'm curious, right? So I'm taking away the idea of making mistakes and firing errors, as long as I'm making mistakes in the direction of expanding truth for me, or pursuing a relationship. I'm interested in some of the mistakes you're making, whether deliberately or not, that you say are either right or wrong when it comes to your health and well-being. What are the mistakes you're making now that, and how are you making them so that we can stand on your shoulders and go and pursue something that way?
Yeah, that's such a great question. So, when you're going through age transition, you start to realize, and so this is a sort of a dualistic conversation for me, because I think that we have made aging this thing where, when you get a certain age, you got to stop doing this, and you got to shrink down what you're doing. And I think for me, what I've learned is that the truth is that as you get older, if you've been exploring, if you've been firing arrows in relationship to your health and learning what your body needs and paying attention, right? And whatever point it is that you start at with that. But if you've been collecting that data on yourself, then you know what things work, right? And what things don't. But you've also been accumulating tools. And so what I like to think about is, as I age, it's not that things are shrinking down, it's that my options are expanding. And so now, as opposed to me thinking, okay, well, I'm either going to exercise in the weight room or the gym or in the yoga studio or at the gymnastics studio or in the dance studio or on the racetrack, it's not that for me. I've touched all of those things, and now it's, what can I borrow from the yoga studio to put into my regular practice, right? What can I borrow from the weight room that needs to be in my regular practice, right? What can I take from all these things to expand instead of shrinking down? And so in firing those arrows over the years, you hit certain places and you go, if you can visualize this, like you fire the arrow, but you really don't know where it's going. That's what happens is when I say make the right mistakes, I don't just mean that I'm making a mistake and I know what I'm doing. I mean, in relationship to another thing, another person, you never know if that effort, that arrow that you fire is going to hit the target. You never know. You don't know, because there's another person or another thing involved. So there's a dynamism there, it's dynamic, and you have to wait and see what the result is, what the outcome is. And if it doesn't work, then you fire a different arrow. But this is where people get stuck, is because they think, okay, yoga, and they just keep firing that arrow. But, meanwhile, oh, my glutes aren't getting any stronger. I keep doing more yoga, but for some reason, instead of examining, well, okay, what discipline of yoga have you been doing? Are they focusing on the external rotators? Are they, not to get nerdy here, but just saying, firing different arrows instead of firing the same arrow all the time, waiting, trying to see, okay, surely this arrow will do it. Surely this arrow will do it. Instead of firing different ones, you keep going back and grabbing the same one and going back and standing in the same spot, shooting for the same thing.
So along the same lines, not asking you to reveal your age or anything like that.
Yeah, I'm 47.
Huh?
I'm 47.
47 now. Okay, so
Yeah.
Given your age and where you are, and given the accumulation of errors you've fired, what does your routine look like, including nutrition? Based on what?
Yeah, it depends on the goal that I'm trying to achieve. So right now, I'm actually eating a little more food than normal because I'm actually lifting weights, which isn't something that I do, at least in this way, all the time. My maintenance looks like 2 days a week of heavier weights, movement practice, like, floor exercise, handstands, rolling, things like that. I love to sprint, so I do that a fair bit. I just love being out in the open space and running as fast as I can. I think there's something so powerful about that. And so those are the three things that are in my regular practice. But when you say a routine, the routine is that I keep firing arrows. I keep trying to see, okay, where am I right now? Where am I trying to get? And how can I get there given the specific context right now? So I don't assume that what worked a year and a half ago is going to work this June.
Wow.
I examine it then.
I love this. I just want to say this and just hush, right? What I'm hearing from you is that everything I do, I could really empower myself in looking at life this way, that everything I do is a mistake and an error. Am I present enough to get the feedback that it's getting me, that it's giving me?
I think that's really close. That's really well said. I would say, like, accepting that everything that I do could be an error.
Yeah.
Like, anything that I do could result in an outcome that I'm not looking for. And, accepting that, but being willing to pivot to fire a different arrow if that one does not hit.
Yeah. And that applies everywhere. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Chase.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So true. I think about what you just said. It applies to my life as a performer, right? Like how certain people try to get into a company or to a band and keep telling them no, keep telling them no, keep telling them no. They go to every audition, keep telling them no. I'm not good enough. I'm not going to sing anymore. There's 8,000 bands in New York City. There's 400 entertainment companies. There's places to sing everywhere. How are you killing yourself in this one area? Or even with a person, like we were saying, in relationships. This person won't go out with me. They won't go out with me. I keep calling them. I dress differently. I smell differently. I say different. They won't hang out with me. It's like, well, why are you staying in that one place? This is a really big thing that people do. So I like that thing about firing arrows. And what I was going to say, just really quickly, there's a book that I love. I might have told you about this a long time ago. It's called Linchpin, Are You Indispensable? By Seth Godin. And in the book, he has this concept called shipping. Keep shipping. If you're an artist, keep drawing, keep podcasting, keep saying something. And when you go in that direction, something is going to hit, but just don't stop. Keep shipping. It's that word, shipping. Are you shipping? No, all your stuff's in your living room on the table like this, right? Get it out. Get it out into the world. Let people see it. Not everyone's going to like it.
that.
Some people are going to call you a piece of crap, actually. Just keep going, keep shipping, keep shipping. What a great book that book is.
Yeah,
and I got to meet him and tell him in person that really was amazing to me. He walked right near me in Union Square. I was like, oh, Seth. It was awesome. Anyway, it was really great.
That's cool.
Does anyone else have any questions for Daniel before we sway out of this beautiful energy? Anyone else? All right, cool. Sorrel, anything else from you as we slide out? You're good? You're good. Okay. Well, Daniel, I mean, it goes without saying, once you open your mouth, I know some stuff's going to come out that's magical, colorful, and, kaleidoscope-like, I will say.
Yeah. Appreciate you, man.
It's a good thing. And before we leave today, as always, I just want to remind everyone of the tenets. Please, please love, live to your potential, move as much as possible. Eat mostly plant-based, if you can possibly do that, right? Stress less, give of yourself, please, please. And lastly, please check yourself before you wreck yourself. Take those 3 seconds to just check it out, please. It's been a pleasure to be here with you. I am Chase Still Gray, Sorrel Quiton, and my man Daniel Johnson. Thank you so much for being here. Have a spectacular day, whatever you do. And we'll see you here again tomorrow, like clockwork. Be well. Thank you so much.
One love, guys. One love. Have an amazing
Bye,
day.
thanks.
Thank
Daniel.
you. Excellent job. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
DJ.